Hello everybody, these are the headlights out of my wife's '01 Lexus RX 300. You can see how faded and yellowed this one is compared to this one over here. This is one that I've already done. I'm going to show my process that I used to turn something that looks like that into something like that using various products. There are tons of videos out there for things like this, but this is just my take. Buyer beware though, this is just general information. If you use anything that I say here and mess up your lights, you're on your own. Okay, before I move into all the products and everything that I'm using here, I wanted to make a note about headlights. They're like a polycarbonate headlight, they're plastic, and there's some form of a clear coat that's applied to them at the factory. And that is what yellows out over time as it is attacked and broken down by the sun's rays, the UV rays. So a lot of the products that I'd looked at were pretty much like this one. You can get some various sanding materials and whatnot, and then to polish it out you get some form of a rubbing compound like this. Well, that may work for a short time, but in short order they're going to get yellowing out again. So to help prolong the time into where they don't need to be done as quickly, I'm going to be using a clear coat to simulate what is done at the factory. Now this is not going to be as good, I'm sure, but hopefully it will be better than using nothing at all. So I went to Advance Auto to look at what they had to offer, and they had two kits there, both from 3M. I zeroed in on those two. One of them was like $18, and it was basically everything here minus this roll of tape. I didn't want all of it. I just simply wanted this and some sanding pads. But I went ahead and got a kit. The one I ended up with was 39014, which actually shows for about $27 on their website. About $10 more than the other kit. But this one was on sale, or just happened to be marked at $10.45, so I snatched it up. The only difference in the two kits is this one came with a little roll of painter's tape. I don't see $10 difference for this one little roll of tape, but that's what it is. The other two products I'm going to be using is this Duplicolor adhesion promoter and this Duplicolor acrylic lacquer clear coat. This is designed to be used on a drill. I'm not going to be using that. I'm going to be using a right angled die grinder with the air supply tuned way down, because if I use this at full bore I'll melt right through that plastic. Alright, well the first thing I've done was just wipe the lens off, soap and water, dry it off, and then masked off any trim. You might wonder why not do them in the car. Well, you can do that, but it's about 1,050 degrees here right now, so in 15 minutes of my time I've got them out here. I can work with them. I don't have to worry about masking the car off. I'll just do it like this. So I'm loaded up with a 500 on this. Like I said, I'm using a die grinder and I've got it choked way down, and I'll be throttling it here. That's too fast. So that's what we're doing. I'm just going to give you a little example here on what I'm doing, and then I'll continue on. This is going to throw a lot of dust. You could wet sand if you like, but I'm just going to go at this dry. So that's basically what I'm doing here. I'm just going to knock it all just like this. If you're not familiar with using discs like this, word of advice, don't ever dwell. You always have to keep moving, and do not tilt it up on its end. You can tilt just a tiny bit to maintain control, but not enough to where you dig in. Okay, well I finished with the 500 grit. I just want to do an explanation here. The objective here is just to get it milky like this. Make sure all the yellowing's gone. Make it look like that. Since I'm using an orbital sander, I had a bunch of swirl marks in it. I need to get rid of those swirl marks in the next grit and make a finer grit. So I've taken just one in the hand, and I've just basically hand sanded all the stripes or the striations going in one direction. So when I get to the next grit, it gives me a visual indicator because I'm going to be putting swirls in with the finer abrasive, and I can look for any horizontal lines, and if there are any, I need to correct that area. Alright, well, I finished sanding with the 800 grit. Same principle. Came in and sanded it, wiped it off, looked for any horizontal striations that I put in there by hand on the previous grit, corrected them if need be, and then the final step is I came in with one on the hand and went vertically this time, and then wiped it off, and that really allowed me to see if I missed any from the old grit that we'd previously done. Alright, well, now we're going to hit it with the 3000 pad. I went ahead and tacked it off with some rubbing alcohol and a clean rag to pick up any of that residue that was left from the previous sanding process. So I'm basically just going to wet this down and then wet my pad and go at it the same way. When it starts to dry out, I'm going to wet it again because I do not want to burn it. So I'll continue on this step. I'll clean it up, but I will take the pad off and I will do horizontal striations this way to make sure that I have them all out from the previous grit. Okay, here's a quick shot after finishing the 3000. You can see how much better it's looking now. Far cry from when I started, and I'm not finished yet. They will look worse before they look better, obviously. You're going to be sanding on the plastic and you have to polish it out. It's very important to take your time sanding, especially when you get to the next grit, and get all those sanding marks out. It just makes your job easier as you go. This one probably takes the most time because it's such a big jump from 800 to 3000. Even though this pad cuts pretty quick, it still takes a little bit of time. I think I probably have about 15 to 20 minutes on this light right now, but it's hard to tell since I shoot videos as I go. Okay, well, I've masked it off for painting. You could actually just use the compound that came with it and call that the final step and be done with it. But I am going to start with this adhesion promoter. Since I've been touching this with my fingers, I need to make sure I get all the oils and whatnot off of it, or when I'm spraying this, it could actually fisheye and ruin the finish. So I'm going to wipe it down with some alcohol. I'm basically following the instructions on the can. I'm going to apply a 3 light coats. A light coat, I'm going to wait 3 minutes, and then I'll follow that through to the remainder. And within 10 minutes of the final coat, I will start applying the clear coat. Alright, well, I just finished applying my 3rd coat of the adhesion promoter. You can see I was kind of doled it out a little bit. That's fine. Once we get the clear coat on here, it should shine itself back up. Once I reach the 5-minute mark on this adhesion promoter flashing off, then I'll start applying my clear coats. I'm going to be putting on 4 light coats. Light coat, I'll wait 3 minutes to let it flash off. I'll do another light coat, and I'll just build the layers up that way, little by little. If you spray them too heavy, sometimes they might have a tendency to cloud out or go opaque on you, and we don't want that. So very light coats, and many of them, and it should look good. Alright, well, I finished shooting my clear last night. I waited a good 24 hours before I start wet sanding on this. I've already done the lens from about here over, just so you can see the difference in the two. This is straight out of the can. You can see it's a little bit translucent in here. I can feel little bumps, or basically tiny flecks and orange peel, and that's why it doesn't look clear. So we're going to wet sand that out. We're going to take the high spots to meet the low spots and make it a flat surface. This is the side that's been finished, and you can see how much better it looks than right over here. Basically, you could take this pad, wet sand it, but it's going to take a little bit of time. To speed up my process, I actually am coming in with a little bit of 1500 wet and dry sandpaper. I've got a spray bottle here. I've mixed just a couple of 2 or 3 drops of Dawn dishwashing detergent in it, and then I'll just wet the surface down like this. I'm going to use this as a foam backer pad to help distribute the weight of my fingers, and then just come in and start sanding this in circular motions to take the high spots down. I'm going to work at it for a little bit. I will check it as I go, and I'll get it really close. You can feel this when it happens. It's already starting to feel good to me. When you first start, you'll feel it kind of skipping and scratching, and as that surface gets down to being in the same plane, it will get lighter and lighter and easier and easier. Alright, well, I've leveled the clear coat off with the 1500 grit. You can see it's kind of hazy right here. If you're going to do it with the 3000, you'll eventually end up over here. It'll just take a little bit more time. So now I'm going to go at it with the 3000 grit pad, wetting it down, of course, with the soapy water, and wetting down my pad, and then I'm going to go at it. You can do it by hand, but I'm going to do it by air. And when the pad starts to dry out, a little bit more solution. And you can see with just that little bit how much more clear it is. So I'll work on this and get it to my satisfaction, and then we're going to move on to polishing. Alright, well, I finished with the 3000 grit. You can see how good it's looking right now. I'm moving into my final step using the rubbing compound that came with that kit. I have installed the pad on the backer, and I moistened it with some water, and then I've just put a few dots of the compound on there. So I'm just going to smear it around like so, and then go at the final polishing here. Just like so. I'll finish it out and show the end product. Okay, I finished my final polishing. You can see the end result now. It really does look almost brand new. Fast improvement over what we started with. Like I'd said in the beginning, there are many videos out on doing headlight restoration. This is just my take on it. These are the results I got after showing what I'd done. Periodically, if I can think about it, I will go out and put a little bit of carnauba wax on it, and it should prolong them from yellowing out over time. I hope this video was informative in some way. Thanks for watching, and good luck.